And the truth is, we can't earn or deserve heaven because of what the Bible says about us. And the Bible says that all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. And all means everybody. It means like everybody's sinned, from the very best person you can think of to the very worst person that you don't even want to think about. We have a tendency to kind of categorize people into, well, they're a good person, they're a bad person, they don't sin too much, that person sins a lot. But in reality, everyone's sinned. So I'd be curious to ask you, what would you say sin is?
Sin. Well, sin is things like cheating on your spouse or murder or robbing a bank, things like that.
Okay, yeah, those are big things. A lot of things in the Ten Commandments, for example. And we have a tendency to think of those things first, but we forget that there's a lot of little things that are also sins that we think of as little, but sin is sin. And it's not only things that we do, but it's things that we don't do that we should. Like if we see somebody in need and we just pass them by and we don't do anything to help, really we're sinning by not doing something. And Jesus took it even a step further, and he said that our very thoughts can be sin. You know, you've heard it of old time said that you shall not murder. But I say unto you that if you hate your brother, you've already committed murder in your heart. Or if you look on someone with lust, then you've committed adultery in your heart. And so if God counts even our thoughts as sin, and God, of course, knows our thoughts, then there's a lot of ways that we could sin, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of possibilities. Anything that goes against God's law or what God wishes for us is sin. And so let's say that I tried to keep this sin down to a minimum in my own life, and I decided that I would try not to sin more than 3 times a day. And just a little tiny, maybe just a thought, losing my temper or a bad attitude or something like that. And I got it down to so it was only 3 a day. That'd be a pretty good person, right?
Yeah. Good for me anyway.
Yeah, it would be better than I could do. But even at that, 3 a day still adds up to over 1,000 in a year.
Wow.
And if I lived to be 70, that'd be 70,000 sins. So let's say I walked into a traffic court and I said, hey, Judge, I've got some traffic tickets. And he says, well, how many do you have? And I said, well, I have 70,000.
Yeah, that would be really bad.
Yeah, I'd be in trouble, right?
Yeah, big time.
Right, and that's really the minimum. So when we look at it, we sin a lot more than we think we do. And the Bible says that there's none righteous, no, not one. And it says that none have done good. And that doesn't mean that nobody does good things, because like you said earlier, you do good things, and there's a lot of people that do good things, but there's nobody that does all good and never does anything wrong. And that, you know, that's kind of obvious because nobody's perfect, right?
Yeah, no one's perfect.
But I wonder if you've ever thought about what do you think God's requirements are to get into heaven?
I don't think I've ever thought about that.
Yeah, it's interesting that, you know, I think a lot of people don't really think about it. But Jesus said it this way. He said, you must be perfect even as your Father in heaven is perfect. So he said the requirements to get into heaven is to be perfect. If we wanted to get into heaven by our own, by ourselves, we would have to be absolutely perfect. And that's not possible because we've already blown it. We're already have sinned. So nobody's perfect. But it makes sense when you think about God because God is perfect and heaven's a perfect place. And if he just let anyone into heaven, heaven wouldn't be perfect anymore.
Yeah, that's true.
So there's a standard that God's kept for heaven. And you can think of it this way. How much poison do you like in your water?
No poison. Thank you.
We don't like to have any poison in our water. And you think about if somebody you saw them drop 3 drops of poison in a glass of water just before you went to drink it, you would never drink that water.
No, I'd put it down.
Right. And it wouldn't matter if somebody added a bunch more good water. It's already tainted. It's already poisoned, right?
Yeah.
And we like to think of our lives as, well, if I do good things, doesn't that make up for the bad? And can't my good outweigh my bad? But the truth is it's more like that water that when there's poison in it, it literally contaminates the whole thing. And that's like our lives before God. The sin taints our lives, so it's not acceptable to God anymore.
Yeah, I never thought about it that way.
Yeah, and you know, the Bible says the soul that sins will surely die. So that's why none of us can make it into heaven on our own. Like earlier you said that you try to be a good person and you try to do good things. Do you see now how you're not able to meet that perfect standard on your own?
Yeah, I can see that now.